And my name is Jay Xu, the director of the Asian Art Museum. And I'm sure that on your way in, you all saw the Red Lotus. Don't you like it? Yeah, terrific. Bright, breathing, sunny. That's really the spirit of what we are doing here. So today, actually, Day of Dialogue marks two very special occasions in San Francisco. One, of course, is the imminent opening of the largest ever contemporary art show in our museum's history, Phantoms of Asia, Contemporaries Awakens the Past. As you know, the opening night party will be on the 17th. It will start at 7:30 p.m. and all the way to midnight. And the theme of the party is appropriately labeled as Party with Phantoms. So make sure you come, okay? The second today is, of course, the Asian Contemporary Art Consortium's inaugural Asian Art Contemporary Week. So that is something that never happened before in the Bay Area. That many organizations come together to present a series of contemporary art exhibitions or programs. And here at the Asian Art Museum, of course, it is our Phantoms show. So today's program is a unique and very exciting partnership between the Asian Art Museum and the Asian Contemporary Art Consortium, a new organization, as I mentioned. And our common mission is to build audience and promote awareness, appreciation, and understanding of the Asian contemporary art. And to make that happen, many people made a tremendous effort, and started with all of you. That the very matter of fact, you spend a Sunday morning here in the museum to learn and to exchange with our artists here is your way of supporting the museum, support our effort in the Bay Area of enhancing the contemporary Asian art. But also, at the same time, I like to particularly single out a few individuals really made this possible, all of this possible. The first and foremost, I like to single out the mastermind behind the Asian Contemporary Art Consortium, Jack Wadsworth. Jack, will you stand to be recognized? Yeah. And Jack is an entrepreneur who had many, many years of experience in Asia, always at the cutting edge of development of contemporary Asian art. And he spent also many years in New York, helped them to launch their Contemporary Asian Art Week. Now, San Francisco has been his abode for the last decade. So he is very hard working with different institutions to make this happen. It was really his idea. And he also signed me up, as well as Stephen Beal, the president of the California College of Arts, to be his fellow co-chairs for the Contemporary Asian Art Consortium. And today, this program is the very kickoff of the Contemporary Asian Art Week in the history of San Francisco. So I also like to acknowledge the executive director of ACAC, Asian Contemporary Art Consortium. Xiaoyu, is you at the audience? Yeah. She's really the hero behind the scenes. We do a lot of talking. She does a lot of doing. So that's very good work. Thank you, Xiaoyu. And also, of course, that I'd like to acknowledge Spencer Foundation, who generously supported public and educational programs of many projects in our museum, but certainly for the Phantoms of Asia, Contemporary Awakens the Past. Without Spencer Foundation's generosity, we would not have been here today. So very much thanks to the Spencer Foundation. And also, of course, we would like to acknowledge our curators for the exhibition, starting with the mastermind of the exhibition, Mami Kataoka. Mami, will you stand up, please? The exhibition is really the brainchild of Mami's. And as you know, Mami is the chief curator of Tokyo's Mori Art Museum, a cutting-edge museum in contemporary art, not only Asia, all over the international stage. And in order to launch our contemporary art effort at our museum, that we invited a dozen also curators to submit proposals to lay out our vision for what we want to do here, but to encourage proposals that can make the best fit and to help us to really deliver what our vision is. And the Mommy's proposal went out. So it is really what we are really looking at today is the realization of Mommy's many, many decades of her curatorial experience and her tremendous effort for this particular exhibition. And in working on this exhibition, Mommy worked with the entire curatorial team at our museum, many of whom are tremendous experts in different parts of the traditional Asian art. But the coordination, the central coordination is carried out by our very own assistant curator of contemporary art, Alison Harding. Alison, please. Yeah. So the effort is really led by Mommy in collaboration with Alison Harding, along with many other curators and other staff members of my team. So they have done really a tremendous job. What Alison brought to this exercise is her tremendous experience in the international contemporary art, and she worked together with Mommy and other curators as well. And for today's program in particular, I'd like to single out Mark Mayer, our educator for public program, and Alison Wyckoff, our manager for public programs. Mark and Alison, where are you? Alison is back there. Mark is in the front. Good, they just want to make sure you're all surrounded back and in the front so you have no escape. And of course, our artists. How could we do any projects, exhibition, and today's event with our artists? So I would like to give not only the artists seated on the podium, but all the artists whose work has made this exhibition possible. They already in living the life in our museum. They're already giving a new, fresh breath to what we are doing here. And I think the most important part for me personally, their art raised many questions, some of which are very provocative and certainly thought-provoking. For us to really come to terms, what do we mean by art? What do we mean by spirituality? What's the relevance of spirituality in this world that's dominated by materialistic concern and driven by technology? So many questions. And our vision and our hope is this exhibition, if it can do anything, is to encourage, ignite dialogue and conversation. And as you know, the subtitle of the show is called Contemporary Awakens the Past. So this show is as much about contemporary art as about the art made in the past. But pause for a second. When art was made, it was always contemporary. So, and we can use each perspective to look at the other. So the central thesis of this show is really about interconnectivity between art of the past and between art of the present. I'm sure today that our artists will share a lot of their thoughts with you. And we are very honored today that to have Glen Helfand, writer, critic, and curator, who will introduce the artist and serve as the moderator for this panel. So without further ado, let me invite Glen to take over. Thank you.
Thank you. I also just want to say I'm really honored to be here for this, and I'm really excited about this exhibition as one that is really looking at a change in the kind of work that we're seeing here at the museum. As Jay was just mentioning, this is going to be a very kind of artist-centric panel, since we have 3 artists here, and can talk to living artists about the work. The format will be, each of them will give a short presentation of their work. I'll follow up with specific question to each of them. Then we'll go on to a kind of general discussion and then open it up for questions to you all as well. So let me just introduce quickly, from my right, Charwei Tsai, who is born in Taiwan but now living in Paris. Jompet Kuzwidandanto, who is known more readily as Jompet, simply like Bono or something, that single name scenario, who is living in Yogyakarta and has a studio in Bali, I learned the other day. And to my right here is Jagannath Panda, who's here from, saying New Delhi, but I think there's a more specific city, Gurgaon. Am I pronouncing it right? Yeah. He has an exhibition up right now at Fry Norris, which is a great addition to seeing his work here. And also, today you can see Charwei's work on the 3rd floor, right at the top of the landing. So I'm gonna turn it over to her. She's gonna start with a presentation of her work.
I'm gonna start talking about 5 of my works that follows the Buddhist tradition. And in many of these works, the central text that I use is the Heart Sutra, which is a text on impermanence, about how what you see, what you hear, what you taste, everything is in constant flux. So there's no point to be attached to these phenomenal sensations. And this first work, I wrote the text onto mushrooms, and then I let it, in the exhibition, throughout the duration of the exhibition, I let it sort of grow and decay and then die and then rebirth. So it goes through this cycle of birth and death. This is a close-up. And then for another exhibition, I evolved this work into working with monks. And the monks, they participate in the writing part, so it becomes like a ceremony. And then for another work in Singapore, I was invited to present my work in their local Guanyin temple, and where I wrote the text onto lotus leaf that's growing in the courtyard of the temple. And it was a really interesting experience for me because it was shown within the context where people were going about with their daily prayers in the temple. So it wasn't really regarded as a contemporary artwork that's shown like in the museum context or sort of an untouchable feeling. So a lot of the temple visitors, they would pray to the plant, or some of them brought flowers to worship, and they put fish to feed in the lotus as signs of auspiciousness. So in this video work, I'm writing the same Heart Sutra onto a mirror that's reflecting the changes in the sky. And this was made in the mountains in Taiwan. So as you will see, this, the clouds will start passing through. So this was done as a performance and then recorded as a video. And then I continued this series also in Australia, in the by the ocean, and then another one in the mountains in Taiwan. The second video, I drew a circle onto ice, and then I let it melt away. And a lot of times the circle is seen as like a form of perfection. And it's a traditional in the Japanese Zen Buddhism for the monks to draw it as I guess as a sign of their meditative state. And then in this case, I drew it and let it melt away. So to make this almost circle of perfection, it takes a lot of discipline and determination. And then to let it away, it's like a sign of sort of effortlessness, which is the central paradox that I find a lot in Buddhism or in many religions. between discipline and effortlessness. Here, this is a new series that I've developed in prints. These are lithographs where I used a broken camera lens to capture different scenes from nature. So again, it's about sort of, because a lot of times in photography, it's traditionally about manipulating the light and what we see, our perception. And in this case, I just let the machine sort of go wild and capturing different light diffusions. And this was in a bamboo grove. And then after I would write little scripts from the Heart Sutra and the mantras onto the light. And then more recently, this is the printmaking shop in Paris where I'm making these lithographs. It's a very traditional hand, like everything is done with heavy, like old machines and handwork. And then I'm making an artist. And then in addition to my practice, I also publish a small journal where I collect works by artists who I met throughout exhibitions, and then I put their works in there almost, and each time reflecting on a different thing that's happening in my life. For example, in here, there's a lot about traveling or about solitude or different topics. And that's all. So I think next, Jompet.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you a question first, just one.
If you have any questions.
I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about the moment at which you kind of were able to merge the sutra that you memorized with the kind of art practice, because it's sort of an unlikely merger of things in a way, like it's pulling in a real life situation into a aesthetic practice. When did you kind of arrive at that formula in a way?
I guess I started making my work as almost like an accident. I was just playing around with some flowers on my kitchen table, and I wrote the text, which is the Heart Sutra that I memorized since growing up in Taiwan, onto the flower petals, and then just sort of watched the text change. And then at the time I was living in New York, I was working for an artist, Tsai, and I told him about the idea, and then he sort of encouraged me to expand it, and then submit it for an exhibition in Paris, and then that's sort of how I started transitioning from, making something at home and then actually exhibiting it as an artwork publicly.
How to start? Okay, I have been working capturing the social and cultural transition in my society. I live in Java as part of Indonesia, who has a vast cultural influence to Indonesia. And yeah, looking back to the history of Java, there has been many points of cultural transitions in terms of social and religion. Let's say before 15th century, Indonesia was Hindu, and then was animist, and then 15th century to 15th century, it was a complicated mix between Hindu and Buddha, and then mass conversion to Islam after 15th centuries, and then 16th centuries, the first colonial era, and etc. So it's a long, many points of transition. So, and I think it's still going on until now, and that is why I'm interested to capture the constantly shifting society, the constantly being in always being in a state of transition. So I use. Oh, sorry. This is the island of Java. I used to work with the mythological materials and historical records very much. And here is one example of my work depart from mythological beliefs. It is I make a family tree. It is a family tree of the first Muslim king in Java. The first Muslim king was about in 15th century, and as you know that before 15th centuries, Java was Hindu and Buddhist, and all the mythology at the time was always connected to Indian mythology. But after they convert to Islam, then the mythology was moved to Arabic or Persian mythology. So as the first king of Java, he made a new line of the genealogy. So he made a statement that he is the descendant of Adam and Eve. So Adam and Eve was in the bottom of the tree, and then the king is on the top. So between the branches, in the branches you will find some famous prophet names like Noah or Abraham or Ismail, Isaac. So this is as I understand this as a remarks of the mythological change in Java. And then I also make another family tree as a house. So this is the same idea, but in the shape of a house. I also work a lot with the historical records, and yeah, I should say that Java is a space where the mythological belief and historical records meet and melt. So I have some series of installation depicting the meetings of mythological belief and historical records as a space. So here is I built some pillars or constructions with some historical records on the pillars. So it's like a trip to many stories of the past. And also this piece which I show here now. And yeah, another points of in the Javanese history I interested in is the War of Java in 1825 to 1830. I feel it's important because it's the last military conflict between Royal Java and Dutch, and Java was lost. And then the Royal Army had converted from military troops into ceremonial or symbolical troops. So they are no longer serve any military service. I would like to show you. Army, you can see the trace of the history of Java from from the costumes, from the musical performance. There, I mean, you can find a European Buddhist hat, or Chinese music elements, many. So I found that as a symbolic truth, this army has an important role, because I found that they are now serving a symbolic war, which is the war, the way they manage the symbol on their body is kind of cultural negotiation, negotiation. So I made. Yeah, I made a ghost army. Yeah, I'm installation with ghost figures or bodiless figure as a represent the fluidity of identity. Elements in the history, the other points of transition in the history, which I really put a mark, is the industrial era of Java, which is after the Java War. Java entered the massive industrial era. They built factories. And one of the first machinery came to Java was a sugarcane factory. So I make a video of at the time, at the first industrial era was initiated, it was a shock for the society to have the machine came to their life. It's a kind of a new alien came, so they have to deal with it. They have to negotiate the change. So the existing society is trying to receive the machinery through a new ritual. It is a ritual mix from many religions which ever happened in Java, and yeah, this is the way how the traditional culture at that time negotiate the incoming culture by in this case how they put the machine as a part of their spiritual cosmology. So I did one performance on a sugarcane factory. This performance actually is one of the part of the ritual of that one.
Colonial times.
Being in a constantly shifting ritual, constantly shifting society is being in a what I call as a third reality. I'm interested to use this term to mention the cultural identity of Java. I did many travel to the whole island to capture the marks of the constantly shifting society. So and I found an important typical practice by the society to express their reality is a carnival, through a carnival. Carnival is for me, it's like the way they express their continuous motion, continuous moving, and so I express it in another. Okay, as a closing, my ability to capture the changes, the transition is really not comparable with the real changes in the society, and also there are many changes which set to tell. Okay, in my, as a, I don't know how to say it, it's become my antithesis of my works, is the rising of the fundamental religious group, where they ban the traditional art, they ban praying house, they ban other interpretation of the same religion. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Quick question for you. Just in reading, and I think it follows what you just showed us. In reading about you, you also work as a videographer, deal with documentary, and as well as working in theater. So I'm just curious to know how you fold that into your general practice as an artist.
Yeah, because I didn't study art, so it's typical in Indonesia that you go study something, and then after finishing your study you do something else. Yeah, because the government has no strong education infrastructures, while the good system is actually provided by the society, by the community. So I was attached with the community very much. I was close with the theater groups or visual art community. So I got my training from them, and I just, this is the accumulation. My work now is the accumulation of my relationship with my community from the past.
Okay, thank you. Jagannath?
Before I start, I have two older slides I should show you, because these two works are very important. One, this is my early drawing which I did in Odisha during my stay. It was a kind of time there was a sense of new language been developing through my work, and this work has been dealt how this ideas of nationalism and it's dealt with the traditions and the folk culture of Odisha. This is a part of this collage, and the collage is Osakuti mural painting of Odisha. First time I got to know the Osakuti mural painting during a tour with my teacher. He was doing the research on the Osakuti, but in general way there was no ideas of understanding of this kind of art form in Odisha. Only people that knows about potter paintings and all, because there is several hidden art and crafts are there, but still a lot to explore. So it's called Independence Day, but also is a kind of symbolic to my own journey of to world. Second work I wanted to talk about is this is made out of wooden box, and middle part is a mirror, and around is animal feather. It's interesting because this work gave me ideas of how life partly been gifted and partly been self-reflection. And I think that's a kind of journey of my new dimension towards my artwork. This animal feather is an interesting story behind it, because I was in Japan for a year and somebody gifted me a jacket. I couldn't bring that when I returned to my India. And but I love that little feather there as a souvenir back to India. And in playfully I built this artwork, and it became some certain days is remain in my home as a utility object. Every time I look at this mirror, and also solving kind of understanding of art and my practice. This work is made in 2003 after I returned from London, my study. Somebody offered me a space in outskirt of Delhi. It's about Delhi border, Delhi and Haryana border, where I encounter with Peacock, and then I begin with. It was my first time I looked so close to the peacock, and the way I was understanding as a peacock itself as a beautiful and more, it's a lot of mythology and history associated with this bird. And by looking at it, I was thinking about how this peacock been negotiating with the city, the way it's been developing, and its own existence, and the way been in the past been peacock used as a youthful spirit or the national bird, or there's a many association with gloriness with the peacock and the reality what exists with. So also this time particularly I started with using as a fabric as my medium. It became a hugely work as a great metaphor for me. Still I am using it. And as my past experience, I was more, grew up with ideas of traditional craft and art in Orissa, and later stage I moved to Baroda and the London. So there's a kind of understanding, grew up art and craft, but I never thought that there was a much differences between these two as in a practice. So I always bring that both ideas together to explore the new possibility in art. This is another space you can see. It was a part of my exhibition in Mumbai. And this is part of the family tree. This is called Democracy and Neighborhood. In 2003, I searched for a home and ended up with in Gurgaon to find a place, and it was also being a big turning point in my understanding of my artwork, and the city became a more relevant for me. The Gurgaon is a kind of city in a suburb of Delhi, where is a new business township is evolving. Hundreds of people are migrating the city for the new hope and aspiration. And this is a kind of time I started to understand ideas of realism and bringing kind of subject of mythology or any kind of imagery from the past. So this this image is a Vishnu from palm leaf painting of Odisha. Palm leaf painting is a very ancient text which talk about ideas of love between Radha and Krishna. And it had been written by Jayadev in, I think, 12th centuries ago. And it was more like a kind of a culture been travel almost every part of India, end up in Punjab hill, miniature painting and everywhere. So also it is interesting me to kind of some fact been associated with this particular work, because I'm living at present in the Sun City in Gurgaon, where this person I met, he used to feed every day to dog around his house, and feel like he's a kind of ultimate fulfillment to feeding the dog. But also he believes some kind of this ideas, but also in my neighborhood there was a kind of tension. Other people, they said you cannot feed dog here because dogs they don't live in this place, and it became a more hassle for themselves. Because I like these two ideas been goes side by side, because one, and also in the same time I was feeling about how this city been growing with different kind of utopias. People are come from different part of India, even for the world, and what kind of dream they bringing to the city, and how city is evolving, because all this Gurgaon is a newly developed city. It's partly been developed, partly is in the process of developing, and every time the city is producing kind of new myth and in this in transformation of this the space. So this work is more interesting, and also been ideas of animal became a kind of more important issue for me, because how this ideas of new development of the new city and cultures give a kind of space to animals and in ethnic cultures or its own landscape or ecology, and those people are living within it. So it's in that process I try to bring this two kind of two different scenario together, almost the opposite scenario, but I play them together and try to put them in a kind of very much balancing way. And this is a kind of city landscape. I was looking at it, and partly is barren and partly highly developed, and partly is very much rural. The contrast of the city, for me also look very because when I entered, I was looking at this very people those are living there, very native people, and suddenly you can see the very like kind of MNC and shopping mall and all that, very, very contrast, and that is very far and wide. This is one of my new work. At present, this is a part of my show in the San Francisco, and this is called Trajectory of Love and Hate. This whole idea of mythology is built around, it's a more kind of archaeological site which has been evolving, and India has become a place where the tradition is not kind of past, and the past and present live same time. You cannot see as the place where the kind of linear of life, but everything is layered, and you can see everything simultaneously. So this is a kind of structures. I was interested with the kind of computer game called Fixel, also built and partly is taken out of miniature painting and Odisha palm leaf painting, and it's been built around either And some of the black and white you can see as a more like optical illusion. If you close by, you look and then white looks black. And there's all layers, it have been overbuilt one after others. And a kind of layers of city is histories and the fact also been there. There's a lot of drawing I also made around here. Those are been taken out from a computer ops about Kama Sutra, and also from some parts are like potter paintings. These are the very kind of mythological figures. Those have been the fighting each other, more like a kind of rights or something happening. And also I was looking at this time, other side of Delhi is called Noida. There was ideas of land acquisition, and then the farmer and the government and the people who bought the land. There was a kind of complex story happened together, and there was intense tension. So in that reflect through this kind of drawing. This is another work, is upside down tree. I was believed that kind of a tree became a connection of the heaven and earth. Also ideas of a kind of a body, and been depicted many layers, but these images are not coming out well. So these are also same stories been depicted to the time, and there's some are morely paintedly, and some are more drawings are there. But realism come to me as a creating kind of space to developing this painting. But also bringing this traditional imagery is more, I feel like how I'm going to negotiate with this kind of city and feel more close encounter.
Can I insert a question as you look at these, as you show us these? There's such a range of material, technique, subject matter, and to throw this to the rest of the panel as well. What was your background? What is the tradition, the formal tradition that you come from?
Well, first I studied in a college called BK College of Art and Craft, where I learned the craft as a form of art and art as a form of craft without understanding and distinguish it. And then later, when I back after studying from Royal College of Art, I go back to the state. I started to understand it, how the kind of crafts, traditions, and you can feel like, there's a sense of otherness and sense of belongingness also. This became a part of my language.
Okay. Do you want to go by through a couple quickly, or can I pass that question down?
Okay, I think I'm going to end up this. Yeah.
So Charwei, can you talk about your training? What kind of art background do you have?
I studied at Rhode Island School of Design in Providence, and I majored in industrial design and art history. And after I did my postgraduate studies at the Beaux-Arts in Paris.
Okay. And Jompet, you mentioned that you didn't study art. Can you talk about what you did?
Okay. I studied communication in a social and political faculty in my city, but I was not a good student anyway. I was a musician while I was in the university. So yeah, but at least while I was in the university, I got mostly I got journalism and video production knowledge, which really influenced my work now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's great. Thank you all for showing your work. It's been great to see this range of stuff in addition to what his own view here. I'm really intrigued by the way that all of your work has a kind of cultural background that travels. It's traveled here. I think that's what's interesting about this exhibition, be able to see it with historical works, works that are sort of framed differently. I'm curious, as artists and working in this kind of a context, in the contemporary context, how much you feel like you need to bring to the table when, you know, you're an artist working in Indonesia, coming here. You were able to show us material just now that was involving, you know, processions that are military. I mean, that is sort of a non-art arena. And I wonder if you could talk about the role that you feel like you might have in sort of presenting the tradition in a certain way.
Yeah, I believe that through artworks, I share my reading tools to understand at least my reality. I mean, my society reality, social reality, and that is also the way to share the idea of my society to people in a larger, in a different with a different culture. So, it is not easy to explain how our traditional life going on, etc. It's not easy, but I'm sure there are some points where everybody can understand or feel in the same situation or facing the same problem.
Charwei, I know you mentioned something interesting the other day about the fact that you've lived half of your life out in the West, and that was a means of creating a stronger bond to tradition. I'm wondering, in that realm, if you feel a similar sort of responsibility to provide information, to say, you know, language, you're sort of exporting language or using Chinese characters in the piece here in a Western context. How do you kind of negotiate that use of tradition?
The interesting part with communication through art instead of through more language or written language, whether verbal or orally. The nice part is when, for example, someone sees a circle, and I think in most cultures it does signify something, and then they have a more intuitive connection with the visual form. And then also the same with the writing. Like for me, if I go to a museum, I see Egyptian writing, I have an intuitive connection with seeing like a human trying to communicate something. And I feel like from my experience, it's quite interesting how I get different reactions. For example, I've done a similar work where I wrote the Heart Sutra on an olive tree in Greece. And then in there, they have quite a strong reaction as, like, I mean, it's different, but it's similar as well to the reaction in Singapore, where people actually know the text from heart, and it's very common everywhere in Singapore.
You talk about it to a degree, even in the video that's on the website for this show, which is I highly recommend looking at. There's a lot of great information there. In terms of it being somewhat of a spiritual practice as well, or, you know, is it a meditative process? Do you really sort of combine it with a kind of literal tradition?
Yeah, for me, I think I do I make the artworks for myself first. Like it's completely a personal practice, and then once it's hung at a museum, then I feel like it's not really my work anymore. Because then it becomes interpreted by different people, which is fine too. But.
Jagannath, in terms of symbols, I think you work. It's amazing to see how many reference points you're dealing with, which, I mean, there's an incredible ebullience to it. Visually, color, the fact that you're talking about computer games, you're talking about sort of development, but you're also using pretty historically based and mythological symbols. And in the piece here, if you want to talk a little bit about the use of, say, a serpent, which I think is something that's talked a lot about with your work.
Well, I could maybe this happened in Asia here. Yeah.
There we go.
Well, in these are the kind of, I was quite interested in the ideas of each material they have an ability to transform into something else, only to perceive and interact with it. These are made out of storage by plastic pipes, because every day I keep looking at it around my studios, how they've been used, and I was imagining that how cities been built, and it is all remain in the kind of underneath. And also, if in kind of a reference to the mythology, the snake has a kind of strong ambiguity form. It's a completely with life and death, and so it neither the good nor the bad. So it is kind of safe. So also thinking about this particular form is also exist in different culture. If you call China or in a Greek mythology or any. So it's ideas of constant production and consumption of the certain thing, and in this kind of joining of thing, there are certain other things been happen around it, which is looks. I put it as a kind of a plastic flower. Also, you can see in India, if there's a kind of pipeline goes, some leakage been happen, and the mosses or the flowers grows out. But these flowers are more plastic and more look like beautiful, but they have a kind of made out of kind of toxic form, which is a kind of another environment been creating around it. So so also I was interested in ideas of real, look like real, look like something. So that way it quite amazing to build this sculpture.
And is this piece is in the
this is part
Fine Norris?
This is part of my solo exhibition that's been going on at the Fine Norris Gallery. And the work here also in the same series, I made the larger one.
That's on view here.
Yeah.
It's the piece here. And you just saying, so these are sewer pipes that are just laying around in the street?
Actually, I would keep looking at how they using. Also there was a lot of discussion going on how these ideas of something, how to recirculate the water, in wastewater. And there was a kind of discussion going on, and then I was thinking about how this narration goes up and down and entangle with itself. All these ideas of producing and the consumption of something. So that way it come up, and but also in terms of form, I really like it with it, because it's not going out. It's itself. It's whatever happened. It's also is a kind of awakes as a constant transformation of its own shape.
In working with a lot of artists here, to know what the kind of art worlds that you each kind of work within. I'm wondering, maybe Jompet to start, like what you're all working, supporting your lives as artists exclusively. What's the scene that you're working within? What is your kind of little daily practice, if you work in a studio regularly? Are there galleries in your own country that you're showing in?
You mean what am I doing? Sorry?
Do you have a studio in what kind of setting? Do you show more out of Indonesia than you do in it?
Yeah.
How about that?
Okay, I live in Bali. I have family in Bali, but my studio is in Yogyakarta. It's 1 hour flight, and I have no proper studio actually. Because I work with many workshops, so I distribute my production in different places, and collaborate with many people. And yeah, the city is actually my studio. Yeah. I mean the materials and the idea. So I got a lot from the city.
Okay, Charwei, I think you have you have a show opening today in Paris. Is that right?
Yeah, I work, a lot of times I work really site specific, so I feel like I'm traveling all the time and I don't really have a studio where I create work. I just work at home pretty much.
Okay. Jagannath?
Sorry,
So in terms of, I mean, I think perhaps you're the most studio-based artist here. What's your working method?
basically I love to do everything by my hand. You know, I have a studio in like almost 5 minutes walk from my house, and it's a kind of a place everything I build in. But the terrace, you go out in the top of terrace, you can keep seeing, constant reference point around, whatever happening around my studio and in the place. So I like the ideas of, something, making something in your hand. So everything I make myself in studio. Basically, if it's not too difficult, then I take any kind of ref. Otherwise, I do everything there. And there's two people, they help me sometime. If there's certain thing I need to do. It's carry on because. But also, there's no kind of timing. I go to studio and sometime in the evening and morning. There's a kind of.
How big of a space do you work in?
The space I built it actually, it's in Gurgaon. It's almost 2,500 square feet.
2,000. Okay.
So there's a few, it's kind of 3-4 floors. So sometimes I work more sculptural work in the basement, and the first floor I work a lot of painting work because it's a dust robe and all.
Okay. It looks Mark has a microphone, so if you have any questions.
Anybody would? Great.
My question is for Jompet. I'd like to thank all of you. This has absolutely been wonderful. Exactly what I hoped it would be. When you were talking, you had to show the video of the soldiers, and they are no longer functioning as soldiers, and you said they were in another kind of war. Would you talk about that, please?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Since the soldiers was, I just imagine at the first time they were designed, they designed the costume, the performance, the appearance. It was really, really new at the time, and they make a new costume for the soldier, which is not possible to make a fight, to make a military fight. They put many symbols on the costume, and the way they put the symbols, the way they manage the symbols is, for me, it's like a war of symbols. Which one you want to put in front of the other? It is the way you want, how the way, what kind of statement you want to show, and that's what I call as a war of symbols, which is at the moment, for me it's the war for anybody, actually, for everybody. The way we dress, the way we put something on our body is showing what you are. Yeah, that is the idea.
Any other questions? I'll be right back.
Thank you all for the wonderful presentations. You've all talked about inspirations that you draw from tradition. I'm interested in which contemporary artists or contemporary art influence you in your daily practice now.
To all of us? Yeah. Before 5 or 6 years ago, I didn't know anything about visual art. I mean, the artwork of visual art. I didn't know. Like I told you, I didn't study art. I learned. I got my training as an assistant for established artists in Indonesia at the time. And mostly I got the knowledge, the information from them, from their library, from their collection of videos, etc. It's difficult to say what influence from the contemporary artists. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, but I can say that I work with many people from different skills. Like I've been working for theater for earlier more than 10 years. I work a lot with the dance performance as well. I was a musician as well. So yeah, I collect the information bit by bit, actually. So from many different people. Yeah.
I don't. For me, my inspiration also, it comes more from life than from seeing like contemporary art. So, well, I think in my art practice is much more personal. But I guess with my influence from contemporary art, I put that part more in my journal, where I publish works by other artists that inspire me.
There's a pretty interesting range of people in there. I don't know if you want to, if any names for like in the most recent of those.
Yeah, it's quite a big range. Like, for example, the recent one on. I don't know if they're the artists that people know, but one of the artists is Harsha. He's also in this exhibition. He's an artist from Mysore, and he does really beautiful sort of little figures and mural paintings. But it's a really wide range because they're all artists that I meet in different exhibitions from different parts of the world.
How are those distributed?
Mainly in museum bookshops in the States, and then some in Europe.
Will they be here?
Yeah, they'll be here.
Your turn.
Okay, all right. Okay. So, I think if you particularly in contemporary art, I've been inspired by many artists, because if something interesting, in their artwork, always it really goes into you, and whether you remember or not remember them, But recently, I really I never forget the Onkawara's retrospective in Japan. That was my first, looking at some conceptual artists, created like a series of questions, ideas of movement or the same, so time and all that. So also recently I seen the Rivaka Hon's work in India. It's very quite like ideas of capturing time and in that way, and you keep inspiring, so many visual imagery you keep getting into, and only on they carry on your psyche.
One last question.
Hello. I also want to thank all of you for a really rich dialogue. It's wonderful. My question is for Jompet, and you mentioned a rise in fundamentalist Islam the last couple of years in Java, and the suppression of other practices and ways of life there. And I wonder if you have begun using any visual references or other references to this in your work, or if you find that it's safe to do that, or if other artists feel safe in expressing their reaction to that.
First, I have to say that I was believe that the cultural machine of Java was run by the negotiation between cultures. From like as I told before about the mix of Hinduism with animism in Java, or Hinduism with Buddhism in a very complicated way. But then I found that it's become very. I got the antithesis of what I thought so far. From the rising of the fundamental religion groups, I found it's really against my perception. Yes, and also that's what I told you, that my ability to capture this transition is not as fast as the society change. They are changed pretty fast, and I was not able to follow it. Now I'm still talking about the negotiation, while in my country the violence against negotiation happens. And I haven't make any reaction through my artworks from the situation, but I of course I really challenged by this situation. And only a few days ago in Yogyakarta, the city, that there was a ban from the fundamentalist group to a discussion from a feminist activist, because this feminist activist is identified as a group of gay or lesbian, something like that, and they ban this discussion by violence. That is the city I live, which is so bad. I haven't made any reaction through my artworks on this situation, on this recent situation, but I will. Thank you.
So likewise, welcome to San Francisco and welcome to the Asian Art Museum. Your comments have added life to your artwork. It always helps to hear the artist describe it. I'd be quite curious. most of us in the room have not seen the exhibition yet. We understand the idea, which is to position contemporary art among ancient works of art. This is a very old building full of very old art. And I would be very curious to hear each of you sort of respond to the idea of how you feel about your art being positioned next to ancient works of art, and also whether or not you had any voice or input into the question of which works of art in this institution your art is next to.
I haven't seen the exhibition. I haven't seen the other works. I haven't seen the collection of the museum, so almost difficult to say.
I always really, because I now live mainly in France, so also in Europe they do a lot of exhibitions where they combine historical objects with contemporary art. And I always really enjoy this kind of exhibitions because I feel like we don't only live in the contemporary world either. Like we live with a lot of history, and it's nice to put works together where they have some sort of continuous frame of thought, whether it's on spirituality or on social, political situations. And then so. For example, probably in the past there are many works on war and on this kind of cultural or religious clash. And then with mine, it's more it's placed in a room with a lot of Buddhas, where, of course, my work reference to Buddhism. So I find it very appropriate and also interesting.
Well, I quite like my space because I saw that the little miniature paintings next to it, with where Vishnu, it Anantasayana, and with the snake, and other one I forget actually. But it's I see there's a quite bit of works. If you look at the traditional art object, the timelessness is there. Certain way you can feel like there's not much journeying between that work to my work. There's always that idea is always interesting to see both of that together. You might call it, or I don't know.
Oh, wow. I wanted to take a moment and thank all of our panelists and our moderator. We have one more question. That was a joke.
I'm sorry, Mark. I just, I feel very excited about the discussion going on. Actually, can we go back one slide to the rhino that Jagannath did? The rhinoceros. Yes, I tell you, I love it. I tell you why. Because, as Jack pointed out, the Ware Museum full of ancient art, and arguably the most iconic work in our collection is a 12th century BC bronze vessel in the form of a bronze rhinoceros. And this is so special because nowhere else in the universe, no any other collection has it but us. So it is really arguably one of the very, very few most important works in our collection. And as you know, as a museum director, even though my previous life was a curator, as a museum director, you don't get to curate exhibitions necessarily. But nevertheless, that we are launching a masterpiece series to really call out the masterpieces in our collection, and we do so, and we want to connect the art to life. So my job is to curate a small exhibition around our bronze rhino. And it also happens because my specialty is ancient Chinese bronzes. And now look at this, I want that in my show. And also, You know, I've been working, every time I go everywhere, business trip, I'm looking for rhino. I know there is a humongous rhino standing in front of the School of Arts, Museum of Fine Arts, Boston. Those of you have been there. And I know there are European Caucasian architects actually make buildings look like rhinos. And we want to involve all of them because it's about interconnectivity, spark connections across space and across culture. So thank you, Jagannath.